Hello, this is Head to Head on UATV, and I'm Oles Gerjuk. Since Ukraine has obtained its independence, the state has made a number of commitments to improve the well-being of children. So what exactly have been done, and what else must be addressed in order to protect the rights of the youngest Ukrainians? To talk more about this, we welcome to the studio Yevhenia Pavlova, head of the Children's Rights Protection Foundation. Hello, and thank you for being with us today.
Hello, thank you for inviting. As you told Oles, my name is Yevhenia Pavlova. I am the president of All Ukrainian Foundation for Children's Rights. Our foundation has an All Ukrainian status, and we have 15 regional branches across Ukraine. And it's obviously we work in the sphere of child protection and the protection of childhood in Ukraine.
Mm-hmm. So you monitor basically, your organization monitors basically the whole country. What is the current situation according to the observance of children's rights in Ukraine?
First of all, just to remind, Ukraine has ratified UN Convention on the Rights of the Child in 1991. Thus, for 27 years, the Convention is a part of our national legislation and, moreover, has a status of priority as an international instrument and document integrated in local legislation. It's a very important remark because huge number of people, including professionals, state officials, they don't keep in mind this issue and they forgot about it, and they don't pay a lot of attention to the convention and to the process of implementation. Mm-hmm. And as you mentioned in the beginning, it's a very important period of time now because Ukraine is preparing the fourth periodic report to the UN Committee on the Rights of the Child. This is
the fourth since when?
The first report has been submitted in 1995. And after that, Ukraine received a number of recommendations from the UN Committee on the Rights of the Child, mostly focused on non-discrimination, the best interest of children, and multidisciplinary cooperation in the best interest of children in Ukraine. The second periodic report has been submitted in 2002, and after that, Ukraine submitted the joint reports, the third and the fourth, in 2008. It was the last report submitted to the committee.
How did the recommendations were changing throughout this time? Recommendation of the UN Committee on the Right of the Child.
You know, the UN Convention on the Right of the Child not only provide the number of rights and freedom to every child in Ukraine, but also proposes the tools and mechanism to control for its implementation. Okay. And the CRC body, like a UN Committee on the Rights of the Child, it observes the process of implementation of children's rights in Ukraine through reporting by state party. Unfortunately, it's a tradition, because after each periodic report, we received the same recommendation and the same concerns, such as about non-fulfillment of the previous recommendations.
Mm-hmm. So we don't manage to
absolutely
to fulfill.
And I assume that we need not only to monitor about the fulfillment or non-fulfillment all these articles guaranteed by the Convention on the Rights of the Child, but just to analyze the barriers on the way of its implementation. Why don't we provide all these rights to children? Mm-hmm. That is a very important issue.
But are these rights being violated mostly at homes, in the families, or at schools,
everywhere,
in the kindergartens?
Everywhere.
Okay.
A lot of children's rights were violated since 2014.
After the conflict started, yes.
During the armed conflict, and It includes the evacuation of children from occupied territories. It's the status and the rights of IDP children. All the situation was dramatically broken because of lack of proper linkages between state organs and bodies. You know, we are talking about the child protection system, which is existing in all countries. Okay. But in Ukraine, we have just ministries, agencies, state bodies, which linked very formally. We haven't got a proper child protection system. This is also a very important issue because globally, the tendency is to strengthen the child protection system in every country and to integrate child protection system in every state policy, programs and reforms.
In your opinion, how could we build the proper child protection system here in Ukraine? What is lagging behind?
It's an interesting question because we need just to make non-formal, very serious, strong linkages between all these bodies and organs. Because, for example, in Ukraine we have 744 institutions.
744?
Right. And all these institutions for children, they are subdivided between three core ministries: Ministry of Education, Ministry of Social Policy, Ministry of Health. And each ministry, within the reform of deinstitutionalization, they have their own vision how to do it, how to help these children. But the most problematic issue that only 8% of children, shall I say, detained in these institutions, because the institution where children spend all her or his time is a place of
like a so-called detention center, you want to say?
Detention center, yeah, something like that. And
but are you talking about orphans or what kind of children?
I'm talking about orphans. I'm talking about children with disabilities. But I can say that only 8% of these children are pure orphans or children deprived of parental care. 92% have their father and mother, grandparents, relatives, but they stay. They have to stay in this institution because of lack of provisions, number of provisions, not because their parents are totally bad parents, as it is. No, because there is lack of services, community-based services, supportive services for such families and children.
So basically, these kind of institutions, they do not let these children go out and join back their families, or? What do you mean by staying the whole time over there, staying for the whole life?
Because parents have economically or financially no reasons. They can't get these children home because they have no money to keep these children
Well, they cannot
home.
prove to the state that they are basically responsible parents.
Yes, I know, but you know, the reform of deinstitutionalization does not foresee the system of services, of complex services. Every child...
But then how would this complex services need to function?
For example, I live in a small village. I have a child with disability. I have to work because I have to feed these children, to buy clothes, etc., etc. I need a school nearby. I have no money for transportation to my children to some small town or somewhere else. There's need to be a school with which provide inclusive education for my child. Yes, I need to have some rehabilitation centers, perhaps. I need to have some medical services, but nearby, not somewhere else.
Somewhere in the province.
Yes, and my child have this right. Have the right to education, have the right to medical service, have the right to leisure time as well, for everything right now. Not, for example, after the end of the reform, but right now.
So basically, we need more infrastructure.
Sure. We need more infrastructure, we need access, like architectural access, informational access, access to various services, yeah.
Okay, but then do you see somehow that the civic communities can contribute to this process? Or should it be only the responsibility of the government?
Mostly it's the responsibility of the government. If we look at the convention, we can roughly divide it, all these articles, like in Europe they call it 3P: provision, protection, participation. And provision, this is a responsibility of the state, for sure. But a number of organizations, a number of NGOs, grassroots, they try to do their best to provide and to create a number of services for these children. And they play a role of caregivers.
So basically what you mean is that the situation with the rights of Ukrainian children deteriorated?
Yeah.
Basically, since we gained independence, or since 2014?
No, since we get independence. After each periodic report, we received a number of recommendations.
So the number of recommendations was even higher?
Yeah.
Every time?
Yeah.
What are the latest recommendations? What are the latest issues that we have to deal with?
The latest recommendation were the following. For example, to establish the independent institution of child ombudsman, to improve the justice system, to create juvenile justice system for children who are in conflict with the law, to implement the inclusive education at all levels, kindergarten, in school, at the university, whatever. Then to pay more attention to children with disability, to create a system of community-based services, as I told before, to give a special protection for IDP children and for their reintegration in society, and a lot of recommendation concerning peace building and development.
Mm-hmm. How does the Ukrainian government react to these recommendations?
As you see, now we have the presidential commissioner on the rights of children. It's not an independent ombudsperson and special ombudsperson for children, but anyway, we have a strong figure which can help to advocate, to promote children's rights in Ukraine. Then, since last year, the Ministry of Justice of Ukraine started a huge strategy for establishment of juvenile justice system in Ukraine. And my organization is a part of this process.
What do you foresee about this issue?
We are preparing draft law on juvenile justice because it's very important, because somebody should be identified like a responsible body for administration of juvenile justice. We need to be sure that this law will be in compliance with the international standards and norms for child protection as well. You know, the new issues and new trends globally are also focusing on children deprived of liberty and children in conflict with the law. By the way, last year, in the end of last year, a global study on children deprived of liberty has started, and each state party should be involved in this process and should prepare the report, national report. And it's strange because we don't know who is responsible for that. Me and my colleague from the Ministry of Justice, we're trying to identify who is responsible for this process, because the deadline for this study is this September.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Well, this is very confusing.
Absolutely.
And the last question, because we're running out of time, what are the major steps that are needed to be done right now?
The UN Committee on the Rights of the Child is welcoming the networking and coalition of children, youth, NGOs, just to gather information and to formulate, to draft the alternative or shadow report. It should be submitted after the state. First, the state should submit the state report and then publicize it, and after that, we will submit an alternative and shadow report. And the most important thing that children and youth will be involved in this process, because voices of children have a significant.
Of course, they have to be counted.
Yes.
And thank you so much for this very important message that you deliver, and thank you for your contribution and for this conversation also.
Thank you very much.
That was Yevhenia Pavlova, head of the Children's Rights Protection Foundation. Thank you for watching UATV and stay tuned for more.